So when I was thinking about what I wanted to make for this episode, I thought, yes, I can work with some of Old Bakery's beer, but I wanted to challenge myself and play around with cooking with gin. And I settled on making Gravlax. And if you've never made that before, it is a cured salmon, and it's going to have a salt and sugar dry brine, and I'm gonna sprinkle a little bit of lifted spirits gin on top. So I'm gonna get started. You're gonna be surprised at how easy this is. The very first thing I'm going to do is, in a pan that will fit, the size of the salmon that you have, just lay a bed of dill fronds. Now I'm gonna go ahead and make that dry brine. And again, super, super easy. So I've got about a half a cup of salt to a quarter cup of sugar. To that, I'm gonna add some white pepper, good amount, coriander, and then a little bit of fennel. And I happen to have fresh fennel seeds on hand, so I'm gonna go ahead and grind them up in my mortar and pestle. All right, fresh fennel, smells amazing. All of these spices really are kind of to taste, but if you want exact measurements, just go to feastmagazine.com. We have all of the recipes there. I'm just stirring this up, and then I'm gonna toss in some fresh lime zest. The citrus really wakes up the flavor of the brine, and it goes really well with gin. So whenever you're cooking with gin, kind of think about all of the different flavors that are in the gin itself, all the botanicals, and that will help tell you what direction to go in with your ingredients. Toss this around. So with your salmon, before you cure it, you want to make sure there aren't any pin bones, which are those little tiny bones inside of the fish. So just run your hands along the sides, and if you don't feel any, then you're good to go. So what I'm gonna do is lay this first flesh side down, and I'm gonna press my brine into the skin. Then I'm gonna flip it over, and then apply the rest of my brine. So with this type of a cure, you want the fish to rest for at least 2 days, preferably 3. It's going to be much more firm if you give it 3 days. But remember, this is not a cure like smoking the fish. It is still raw fish, and so you'll want to eat it within a few days of cure. Now comes the gin. You don't want much. You just want to sprinkle a little bit on top. It's going to add beautiful flavor and aroma and help the salmon cure beautifully. I'm just going to lay some of the dill fronds on top, add some plastic wrap, and then it can go in the fridge. Now, of course, I mentioned this actually takes 2, preferably 3 days. So I have a Magic of Television version that I made just a couple of days ago. So I'm going to grab that. What the salt does is it pulls all the moisture out, and you can see that the liquid kind of pools down here, and the fish is incredibly firm. It smells fresh and clean. Oh, it's going to be delicious. Typically, you would serve very, very thin slices of Gravlax with a dark brown bread, but it's also really good with Blinis, which are these tiny little pancakes that you often see served with caviar. So I'm gonna make some of those today, and it's gonna start with just 4 eggs. So to the eggs, I'm gonna add a cup of sour cream. All right, half a cup of flour, and then just a 1/4 teaspoon of baking soda and a little bit of salt. We're gonna cook these up just like pancakes, so I'm gonna head over to the stove. So here I have my beautiful little stack of Blinis. Sour cream or creme fraiche is the perfect accompaniment, and then some really pungent and delicious microgreens. So now's the moment of truth. You need an extremely sharp knife. If you have a dull knife, this is not gonna work. You wanna make sure that it's sharp because you're cutting very, very thin slices of the salmon. And if you have a dull knife, it'll just rip the salmon apart. So what you wanna do is hold your knife at a 45-degree angle and then slice it. Get it as thin as you can. And I'm sure you're noticing that I am not cutting through to the skin. The skin is something that you want to have during the curing process, but it's not really something that you want to have attached to the piece when you're eating it. There we go. I think it's about time to dig in, and I'm pairing our Gravlax with a Vidal Blanc from Balducci. And I chose a Vidal Blanc because it has a very minerally, almost stony flavor to it, and that's gonna pair really nicely with the kind of gin, juniper flavor that we have in the salmon, as well as the salmon itself. Gravlax is an elegantly simple way to work with salmon in your own kitchen, and it could not be easier, so I hope that you're inspired to give it a try yourself. Until next time.